Well, everyone, welcome to this emergency, well, not emergency, but immigration update from Murali Bashyam with Bashyam and Shah law firm. He's an immigrant expert, a longtime friend of mine. And we are live today on Radio Murci, which is aired on 99.9 FM, HD4, 1490 AM, 101.9 FM, and also Baltimore, Philadelphia, and different cities in the United States. I personally want to thank Ravi Chakuri and his team. We are the largest South Asian radio station in the Triangle region, and we welcome you. Also, if you're on Facebook, we are streaming this live on my Facebook site this morning, and so we have an opportunity to chime in with some questions for Mr. Bashyam in this maybe 15 minutes that we're with him this morning. So Murali, welcome to the show. We want to thank you for being here on a Saturday morning.
Thank you, Steve, for getting me up so early.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah, thank you for doing this. And so, real quickly, I know I'm going to give you just a minute or two to introduce you and the firm, but then talk a little bit about our community. Very, very concerned about H-1B, skilled immigration, green cards. Recently, some articles that you had mentioned on my LinkedIn on Forbes about President Trump talking about more restrictions on skilled immigration. So, could you, in a broad stroke, sort of give us the lay of the land today in the U.S.?
Yeah, just a little background on us. We've been doing immigration for about 25 years. We do corporate and family immigration, both in the U.S. and globally. We do it because we like it. We like helping companies. We like helping families. And so, having done it for 25 years, seen a lot of changes, with U.S. immigration, with administrations and things that have happened over the years. This is certainly a very challenging time, Steve, as we all know. Given the COVID situation, immigration has certainly gone top-down, tipsy-turvy, however you want to call it. So let me just kind of give you the broad strokes, as you mentioned. So what's going on right now is we have restrictions on H-1Bs. We've got restrictions on green cards for people coming into the U.S. And the Trump administration really is trying to do these things under the guise, I guess, of protecting U.S. jobs. And so what they've done is for 60 days, they've basically put a halt on anybody wanting to come into the country as a green card holder, unless you already have a green card, of course. Now, there's been a lot of talk in these articles, such as Forbes, where Trump may come out and actually put that ban on people who want to come in on H-1Bs or L-1s or even other types of visas. We have to see. That really hasn't happened yet, but there's been a lot of talk that may happen. Now, we don't think that's going to impact anybody who's already in the U.S., in H-1B or L-1 or O-1 or any other non-immigrant status. So this is really for people who are applying outside the U.S. to come in for the first time. And we have to see whether Trump actually comes through with that or not, but there's a lot of talk that that's going to happen, And so once that happens, we'll certainly inform your readers and our clients and our readers as well. The other thing that has happened is we're getting a lot of calls and emails from people who have traveled outside the U.S., prior to all these travel bans that have happened, and who are stuck outside the U.S. at this given point in time. And that's a huge issue. We've had clients who traveled outside the U.S., whether to India or other countries, prior to all these bans and, all these issues, and they're stuck in these countries because flights aren't going, you can't get back in the U.S., and people are scared, And the only thing I would say to that is if you're like a permanent resident or a green card holder and you're stuck outside the U.S., you can't come back in. Obviously, people are aware that the longer you stay outside the U.S., it could potentially impact your green card status, So I would say don't be scared. The U.S. is aware of these things, and just document the fact, that you can't come back into the U.S. because of these travel restrictions, or airlines aren't flying out, for example, from India to the U.S., If you have underlying conditions, that would, have you, have more of an impact if you were to get the coronavirus or the COVID-19, then document that, maybe get a doctor's letter, showing that you can't travel at this particular time and put your health at risk. So, certainly kind of document these things and, certainly contact the U.S. Embassy, with this as well, because there are special flights going back and forth. So don't panic is my this. Also,
okay.
I was going to say real quickly, what happened yesterday also is that the Trump administration came out with this proclamation regarding Chinese students. and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be waking up, in reading that and panicking, especially if you're a Chinese student wanting to come to the U.S. or a Chinese student who's already in the U.S. And so let me kind of just narrow that down for you. It does not impact any Chinese student who's coming for undergraduate studies. It only impacts any Chinese F or J student who wants to come for graduate or research work if the student has had any past or present ties with any Chinese entity that has connections to the Chinese military civil fusion strategy, so we don't know exactly what that means yet. And I think a lot of US consulates are going to have a hard time figuring that out. There's got to be more guidance on that, but it is not a ban on all Chinese students. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, great. That's helpful. And I recently got approached by, it actually made the ABC News. There was an Indian American who lives and works in Morrisville who was on vacation in February and could not get back in the country, and he finally got back in. But this is a classic situation we're seeing. The other one that we're seeing is families being separated, situations where their H-1B isn't extended for whatever reason. The kids are US citizens, and I actually had a family situation where that happened, where for a few months, parents had to go back to India, and then they were able to come back. Very unusual situation. So I think this is just a very disruptive time. Before we open it up for questions, I did get a couple of questions sent in to Ravi Chakuri and me that we were going to ask you to kick off. And then I've got one from the New American Economy, a lot of concerns from the technology sector. But parents, one question, Murali, is parents visiting from India, do they have to apply for an extension since there are no flights? So let's say your parents are visiting from India here, and now they can't go back. Are they going to have to get an extension?
Yes, they have to file for the extension, Steve. That's something they need to do prior to the expiration of their current I-94. Make sure it's timely filed, and point out the reasons for requesting the extension in the application, such as you just can't leave, and I think the government knows it, everybody knows it, but you have to make sure to do whatever you can to protect your status in the United States while you're still here.
Okay. Now, what is the average citizen processing time? I've heard Congressman Christian Murthy from Chicago, who knows Senator Chaudhary, and I hosted an event. We had him, he was invited to Raleigh. He's the United States Congresswoman from, he's the newest member of what they call the Samosa Caucus, which is, but he said, when you go into the U.S. citizenship process today, if you're coming from India, you would have to go 150 years from the beginning. How long is this? It takes a long time.
Well, don't confuse terms here. The citizenship process is one thing. Going for U.S. permanent residency or green card is another thing.
Okay.
What you're talking about it taking 150,000 years, that's for going through a green card process if you're a Indian national in like the EB2 or EB3 categories,
Okay.
And so, that process, obviously we're exaggerating on time, but it does take an extremely long period of time. It can take 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on the category that you're in.
Okay.
Citizenship process itself, that's a different situation. That's for people who are already green card holders, and that's a much shorter process.
Okay, thank you very much. We got one question that was also submitted, and it said, I have a green card. My husband has a green card through me. This is a little bit of an awkward question for me to ask. How long do we have to stay together to not upset our green card limit? When I read that question, I was like,
well, I think I might pass on that question, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, man. By the way, I'm wearing my Hamilton shirt in the spirit of immigration. So,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And just to give a little disclaimer here, I focus on employment immigration, and we have other team members here family immigration. So.
Okay. Well, that might be something that if you have a question on family-based immigration, but I would just assume that the green card rules would apply. If you get married and through that marriage you have a green card, then you have a green card, a valid
Correct.
card, and you're in the process. And I guess in terms of how long you have to stay together, that's a family law issue, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange question, to be honest. And I think, we probably need to get to the heart of really where that question is coming from to answer it the right way.
I could sort of see one thing that I'm thinking, and like I said, total disclaimer, because I've been married for 25 years, but and I am a US citizen. But if you had if someone got married and then they were together they got a green card because they got married and they were together for 6 months. I mean, how long? I guess that's what the thing is. How long would they have to be married for the green card? And they got married and then they got divorced and annulled the marriage in 2 weeks or whatever, you know. So,
Well, I mean, anytime someone's doing a green card through marriage, number one, the marriage has to be a bona fide marriage, meaning the relationship has to be real, number one. You can't just get married to get a green card. In the USCIS and our government, they really, focus on these things very carefully. And certainly they scrutinize marriages, to make sure that it's a legitimate relationship. And, but, having said that, there are marriages that are legitimate that people go into with the right intentions and the right reasons that just don't work out.
Yeah.
Does that mean that your entire immigration is gone? Sometimes yes and sometimes no. It really depends on the timing of these things, so that's a very, very complicated and specific issue. So I would say, if you're getting divorced and it's a legitimate marriage and legitimate divorce, don't immediately panic. I would say talk to an immigration attorney who focuses on family immigration and see, what your options are at that point, because, there are ways to help you. Okay,
great. Couple more questions while we have you. So I'm a board member of the New American Economy, and the New American Economy is a bipartisan organization of mayors and business leaders committed to immigration reform. And, Jeremy Robbins, we're going to be doing a town hall meeting next week. So I think you and I might be working on getting more citizens engaged in our community on this town hall. David Price is going to hopefully be participating, but Congressman Price. But I just want to read you just a couple of statistics from the New American Economy, because I recently had someone on Facebook chime in on that very question of jobs. And they say, well, Steve, President Trump is, even though he hasn't put any of these in effect, he's doing the right thing to save American jobs. Why would I want an H-1B worker here when I've gone through the system and I've gone through school and I'm getting a job and they're going to be bringing someone from Pune, instead of hiring me. But Jeremy Robbins sent some data. I'm just going to read some of the data points. 1 in 4 technology workers are immigrants, 1.2 million people, nearly 40% or 529,000 immigrants. In terms of IT workforce, in New Jersey, 47% are immigrants, California, 44%. In North Carolina, I think it's about 35,000 programmers are foreign-born and 62% of PhDs are foreign-born. And between 2013 and 18, the number of IT workers grew by 1 million. And there is an IT shortage. We hear different numbers, being in the tech industry, but about 300,000 IT workers. So what is and then the final thing is healthcare. So just in the COVID crisis, you've got over 9,000 nurse assistants. Many of them are dreamers, DACA. Some of them are here illegally. Many are H-1B, surgeons, physicians. So how do we bring an economic conversation to this immigration debate? Because I feel like there's a disconnect with the president and many people saying we're trying to save American jobs, but what I'm hearing from the New American Economy is that these skilled immigrants are helping create jobs. They're filling the need in an economy where there's skill gaps. So could we have both? And I know you're not a lawmaker, but you get this issue all the time, right?
Yeah. So here's my opinion on this. Obviously, we have the highest unemployment rate right now because of COVID-19 specifically. And it's really, really unfortunate. And, we talked to a lot of companies who are struggling because of this, and a lot of people who are struggling because of this. And so these are important issues, but when it comes to, if you step back and you look at the economy as a whole, not all skill sets are the same. Not all jobs are the same, The IT industry, for example, has a very low unemployment rate right now, even despite, what's happening with COVID-19. They need workers, just as you pointed out, Steve. So it's not just about, okay, if we stop all the foreign workers, is that really going to help U.S. workers? It's not that simple. A lot of folks who are at H-1B who, eventually get green cards, they start companies, they employ, lots of folks, including U.S. workers, non-U.S. workers. everybody helps everybody. That's what we've seen, doing this for 25 years. I mean, these companies, they're not built to just, hire H-1B workers all the time. They're hiring U.S. workers, American citizens, permanent residents, a lot as well. And, the one example I would give as to how, foreign workers can really help this country and have helped this country over a period of time is by the screen that you have behind you, Steve. President Trump, is celebrating the SpaceX launch that hopefully will happen this afternoon. But the founder of SpaceX, Elon Musk, is an immigrant. He came here as a student. He got an H-1B visa, went through the green card process, and now employs, thousands and thousands of mostly U.S. workers, and look what he's created. You have Tesla, you have SpaceX, how much value is that, as far as creating jobs to the U.S. economy and to the U.S. as a whole, from a global situation. And Elon Musk is just one example of many, and so the conversation should be more about, how can we help the U.S. economy create jobs for U.S. workers? And how can we help the U.S. economy get better? And that conversation really comes down to, we need to get the right people in the U.S., take the list of the people who are in the U.S. If there are smart people outside the U.S., bring them to the U.S. and create that economy that helps everybody.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a couple of more questions, and then we're going to open it up to audience. But I'll end with this. I mean, that's why I put that SpaceX thing, because you put a LinkedIn post on my thing, and I thought that was such a great point. And so I got that backdrop. I'm out of Cape Canaveral. But on that point, the new American economy also, I think John Chambers was here in Raleigh a couple months ago. He's from my home state of West Virginia. And he made a comment about, as we automate, we're going to automate away about 40% of the jobs in the next decade. And that was before COVID when he made that statement in Raleigh.
Right.
He said, in order to counter that, we have to create about 15 million new jobs. And, he's advising Macron in France. He's advising Modi in India on Tech India. And he says that these jobs are going to be in emerging areas like AI, data, analytics. So I would think my comeback to Tim Walford, who was the one who made that comment, is that these H-1B immigrants could be helping in creating those new jobs, that we want the best and brightest of the world coming into America to create those jobs. So the next SAS, the next Google, the next Elon Musk would be here instead of India, Canada, China, right? I mean, so I think that's an important balance as we look at the world and how it's changing. Correct?
It is, and I think there's a danger that's happening now with perception, with what the Trump administration has been doing with immigration over the last couple of years. And a lot of the talk that's going on now with H-1B restrictions and L-1 restrictions and, with China and everything else, we don't want the perception that U.S. doesn't want, the best and the brightest or immigrants anymore, because the world economy now is not how it was 20 years ago. Now there are lots of places to go and lots of places to work. We want, the smartest folks to come here. We don't want to restrict them from coming here. If they don't want to come here for some reason, that's their choice. But, choice is one thing. But we want to have an open society, a reasonably open society with good laws, and I think we've talked about this for a long time, which is immigration reform hasn't happened. People keep talking about it forever, but it's never happened. And, the debate's always been about illegal immigration, but it's never been a debate about fixing our legal immigration system to make it fair and better, and I think those two things need to happen to really create the economy that we really want, one that is thriving, not just for people already here, but people who want to come here as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's a great way to wrap up. And I mean, if you can email Murali Bashyam in a minute, I'm going to get his information. And then for New American Economy, you can just go to New American. I had some tweets coming in. You just go to newamericaneconomy.org to get that information. And we're going to open it up now for questions. But before we go, my final point is that I think it's there have been Congressman Krishnamurti introduced some bills in the Congress on, the Immigration to Innovation Act, which would enable, spouses to continue to work, move between jobs, education-based exemptions, fees to go into worker training programs. But these bills, they get a lot of talk and then they just die and they come back again. But because I think it is such a complex issue, because what's ag worker may not necessarily be good for the ag worker. And you've got the dreamers and you've got the legal skilled. and then you got the illegals. So hopefully we're going to have to fix it, but it's
not a one-size-fits-all type of scenario.
It's not a one-size-fits-all, but if you're listening to the show, I would encourage you to, engage with David Price, engage with Tom Tillis, with Richard Burr, with G.K. Butterfield, but across the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats. And it's really a federal issue. I mean, Senator Chaudhry's had ideas about tuition breaks for students that are here on H-1B, but he's not a U.S. congressman, not yet. And so there's only so much he can do. But, we can, try to figure out a way to get more awareness at the federal level, right? So that's, just my call out to everybody. But I'm waiting for, most of the questions people were sending to me on tweet, but we'll wait a few minutes for any questions. And do you have any parting thoughts, Murali, or any final thoughts?
Yeah, one other thing I didn't mention before, the USCIS did resume premium processing in a phased-in approach, and that notice just came out yesterday as well for H-1B cases and other non-immigrant cases as well. And so you can go to the USCIS website or go to bashyamshah.com. We have that posted there, and you can read about this. I think that's fantastic news from the USCIS, because it'll help a lot of companies and employees expedite their cases, which I think is an important thing right now. And we believe that the U.S. government or the USCIS has re-implemented premium processing because they simply need the money, which is good for them. It's good for, us as well.
Okay. And the EB-5, one last question that I forgot to ask. How are those rules changed? A lot, or the EB-5 is still in place, right?
EB-5 is still in place. The only real change is that the monetary amounts have increased, So basically it went from 1 million to 1.8 million, and then 500,000 to 900,000, So the investment amounts are a lot higher now than they used to be. But outside of that, everything else is basically the same in the EB-5 program. The one thing I would say is, because there's a lot of issues between U.S. and China right now that seem to be escalating. A lot of Chinese, especially Chinese students, use the EB-5 program to obtain U.S. residency and remain in the U.S. And so as tensions between the U.S. and China, increase, hopefully not, we could see the amount of investment coming from, Chinese individuals into the U.S., into the EB-5 program decrease, which could negatively impact the EB-5 program, which then negatively impacts, a lot of real estate developments, hospital developments, a lot of projects in the U.S. that actually do create U.S. jobs, because that's a part of the EB-5 program requirement. So we just have to, that trickle-down effect is what people sometimes don't realize. One action here has an impact 45 actions down the line, and people need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic. And then I think one question we often get asked is, can EB-5 investment be used to fund things in a CIP plan for a town? I guess they could, but it has to be a project that creates jobs. And
correct, yeah.
But it could be done, but it's a very complicated process. That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's a separate conversation for sure.
Yeah, well, we want to thank you so much. I want to thank Ravi Chakuri. We were supposed to only be on for about 15 minutes, but we had just wanted to knock as much out as we could. But really want to thank Ravi and his team. They do such a great job. And if you're listening and you have an idea, please get in touch with us. If you want to advertise, please email me. We're taking a lot of ads now as people go more digital. And I want to give a shout out to the immigrant communities during the COVID pandemic as we close out the show. Hindu Society in North Carolina, manufacturing cloth masks, delivering meals to the homeless. BAPS, a Hindu temple around the United States, but they have a temple in Morrisville, delivered 1,000 N95 masks to our first responders. The Chinese American Friendship Association delivering hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of PPE equipment free to medical. I mean, we're seeing immigrant communities really step up. And then, of course, those that are serving in healthcare. So we just want to thank them as we are fighting this pandemic. And more than we wish you and your family safety, we want to thank you for working very hard. And everybody out there listening, please be safe. We're opening, cases are going up, but they're stabilizing. And we just want to make sure that we get back to seeing each other. So hopefully we don't have to do this on Zoom. A year from now, we could do this interview in person, but I'm starting to get used to it. So
thanks, Steve, and everyone stay safe, and
yeah.
hopefully this passes soon.
Yeah, thank you. You've been with Radio Murchie. We want to thank everyone. We'll be airing our show tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and go to radiomurchieusa.com if you want to learn anything more about our wonderful station. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, Murali.
Thank you, Steve.